one of the most asked questions I get is, how often can you take pre-workout? And I get this question often, whether it's for a particular pre-workout or the exotic stimulants that's in there, or just the standard pre-workouts. Now, let's just look at pre-workouts as a whole. So when you're looking at pre-workouts, you're looking at caffeine as well as other stimulants. So imagine when you're drinking coffee, right? You get this alertness, this energy, you start talking to people. That's just coffee. That's just one cup of coffee. Imagine a whole pre-workout. Some pre-workouts may contain a couple cups of coffee, and it really gets you going. So let's start at why people take pre-workouts, right? There's three things. The first one being it's habit. They take it and they go to the gym, they feel energized and awakened, and it's become part of their routine, whether it's a low stimulant pre-workout or a high stimulant or even non-stimulant, right? And then the other one is consistency. Pre-workouts help people stay consistent to their routines, whether they are doing bodybuilding or they're trying to maintain their strength. Taking a pre-workout and you hit the gym, you just get that same level of performance that you would get every time. You're not going to decline in performance. Let's say if you're using the same pre-workout, you're using the same training routine, it just becomes part of life. And the other thing is like side effects. A lot of people just don't have side effects, or they don't notice anything negative in the short term, so they feel it's safe. You know, maybe the most they'll feel is heart racing issues, but like it goes away after a while. So those are the good things. And a lot of those good things result in just a big increase in performance in the gym. So those are a lot of the good things that come with pre-workouts. And as a result, there's going to be some negative things. And a lot of those negative things are coming from dependence and tolerance. So when you're taking a pre-workout, you get that insane rush of energy, whether it's a low caffeine or high caffeine. That first initial rush from that first pre-workout you ever take is undoubtedly going to be one of the best times you've had with a pre-workout. But you'll notice as you use pre-workout, your tolerance isn't the same. And you'll notice that the more you use it, the more you need of it. So the tolerance really builds up, and this can cause some issues because when you're taking this much caffeine, you're going to have side effects. So the other thing is side effects. When you're taking all these stimulants together, especially at high dosages, you're going to have some risks for elevated blood pressure, cardiovascular problems. And when you're having these issues, they can cause some issues in the long run. So it really creates this dependence that you have on caffeine and the pre-workout itself. When you train and you feel weak, you're going to feel like you need that pre-workout, because otherwise you would just feel weak and you wouldn't train at your best. And this creates a cycle. And then we get to the side effects. You know, there's a wide range of them, ranging from jitters, anxiety, sleep disturbance, and much more. All these stimulants can cause increased risk for elevated blood pressure. You know, when you're taking all these stimulants, it causes and increases the risk for elevated blood pressure, cardiovascular problems. So all these side effects can come, especially when you're taking high stimulant pre-workouts. So if you feel tired and you don't feel a thing when you're taking pre-workout, that's a solid sign that you need to take a break. And when you're taking caffeine and you don't feel it and you still feel sleepy, tired, your body is just begging you to stop and to take a break from all these stimulants that you've been consuming on a regular basis. And if you stop using pre-workouts and you just sleep for like 12 hours a day, that's also a big sign that you need to cut down and stop pre-workouts and just take a break. You know, assess your usage of pre-workouts and make sure you're not using it too much. So with all that being said, you have the good sides, you have the side effects. How do you maximize on pre-workouts and how do you make the most out of it? So if you're watching this channel, you're probably likely using high stimulant pre-workouts, such as the ones that have the exotic stimulants like DMAA, DMHA. You know, even if you're not, you're probably using pre-workout with at least 400 milligrams of caffeine combined with other stimulants, yohimbine, synephrine, erythrogenesis. It's just a big cocktail, you know, of pre-workout stimulants that make you feel alert and awake, right? So when you're using high stimulant pre-workouts, hopefully you're using it only when you're training really hard. And when you're training really hard, you're not going to be training that hard consistently for weeks on end. So when you have a training program, ideally that cycle of like training hard should be between 2 to 4 weeks, just depending on the volume and the training program you're using. If it is very intense, then it makes sense to use a high stimulant pre-workout. But if you're training normally and there isn't much demand for high effort, it makes sense to use something low stimulant or even non-stimulant. And that way you give yourself some days off. So ideally you want to go like, if you're using a high stimulant pre-workout, you want to use it 3 times a week, maximum, like ideally 2 times a week. And then you would have the rest of the week using a low stim or a non-stim type of pre-workout. Ideally something without any stimulants. That way you have like 1 to 3 days with low stimulants or no stimulants. So it depends also how you feel when you're using these pre-workouts. And I would highly advise against combining it with other caffeine sources. So do not drink coffee if you're using pre-workouts. In the same day, don't drink coffee. And the thing with caffeine, when you're taking caffeine, you're blocking your mind from feeling tired. And this feeling lasts a long time. The half-life of caffeine, it's like 6 hours. But after 6 hours, say you consume 300 milligrams of caffeine, at that 6-hour mark, the caffeine is cut in half, 150 milligrams. But then it still stays in your body. So 6 more hours after that, it divides in half again, 75 milligrams. So that means if you're taking caffeine, at 12 p.m., at 12 a.m., you're still going to have 75 milligrams of caffeine in your system. And that's going to disturb your sleep just a little bit. Even if you take it early enough in the morning, that caffeine really does cause some sleep debt. And that's why when you stop using caffeine completely, you get hours and days of just feeling tired because your body is just catching up on feeling tired and you're just trying to recover from all that. So ideally, you want to take 1 day to 2 days off completely from caffeine, but I know in real life it's hard, so I would recommend tapering down to a level that's low enough to maintain your productivity and your workout productivity. So if you could just use anywhere from 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams of caffeine, one hack that I do is when I don't have caffeine during the day, or I plan to deload off caffeine, I would not use caffeine in the morning, but then when I get tired, I microdose the caffeine. So I'll take like 100 milligrams of caffeine, maybe 50 milligrams of caffeine. This is where like bulk caffeine comes into play, or maybe fat burner pills that have, multiple pills of servings. So that way, if it's like a serving size of 3 pills, you take 1 pill, it's just depending on the caffeine total in that fat burner. So if that makes sense. So if you're taking high stimulants 2 times a week, max 3 times a week with a normal stim pre-workout in between, so something below 300 milligrams of caffeine. And keep in mind there are pre-workouts that have like special stimulants like Excelsior that you do not want to take, especially not every week. I wouldn't recommend taking it every week. This is a very strong pre-workout that has like ADHD level stimulants. So the point is 2 times a week for the high stimulants, max 3 times a week in my recommendation, meaning anywhere from 400 milligrams of caffeine and above, combined with other stimulants. Limit that to 2 to 3 times a week. And then you can use a lower stim pre-workout in between those days. And a good way to taper off pre-workouts that are really strong is to lower the dosage of caffeine, take less of a serving, or use a lower stim pre-workout. So hopefully this helps you. If you want me to make more videos like this, let me know. And so basically, if you stop using pre-workouts and you feel really tired and you sleep for like 12 hours a day, it's time to take a break. It's time to take a break. And it makes sense to use those high stimulant pre-workouts when you really want to train hard. But of course, you will not train hard all the time. Ideally, you want some time to let your body to recover, which is typically known as like the deload period. And it's especially useful for natural lifters who cannot recover as well as those enhanced athletes. So having that period where you're just training just to maintain your strength and muscle it makes sense to use a lower stimulant pre-workout. And then when you're really going tough, you're going high intensity, then it makes sense to use a high stimulant pre-workout. So hopefully this helps you. And keep in mind, if you want to lower the risk for cardiovascular issues and blood pressure, try combining your high stimulant pre-workout with a pump formula, anything with nitrates or agmatine, citrulline, or a combination of these three ingredients will help lower the blood pressure, or any kind of nitric oxide booster, because this will help increase blood flow, lowering the blood pressure that can be otherwise increased with high stimulant pre-workouts. So maybe I'm curious about what your take is on pre-workouts and cycling them for best maximum usage. What do you do with your pre-workouts? How do you cycle them? What's your strategy? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to hear them.